So who are these two guys, all right? So my name is, I can't be doing that. My name is Dave Kahn. I've been in IT since I was 6 years old, but I've been working at SUNY Oswego for the past 13 years. I've been the lead Apple Mac administrator. I'm ACMT certified. I also do all the virtualization for our Citrix environment, as well as I support the entire School of Business for Windows, anything they bring in that plugs into the wall. My email address is there. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'll be happy to get back to you.
I'm Chris Palian. I'm ACMT certified. I have my CISSP and my Certified Ethical Hacker certification. I've been with Oswego for about a year now. I enjoy it a lot. I'm split between the Campus Technology Services and the Office of Learning, which is a supplementary group to the university which helps students succeed in their education at the university. So we do a lot of tutoring. We do a lot of special services for transfer students and incoming freshmen to make sure that they get onboarded and know what they're supposed to be doing with registering for classes and where they can seek help when they need it. So my time's usually split about 85 with CTS and about 15% with the Office of Learning with their technology needs.
All right, so the big question, and some of you may know, who knows where Oswego is? Like Oswego, New York, because there is one in Illinois, I think. That's awesome. But I figure I should put this up here. We're the little red dot right there, and we're way down here. So we're right on the shores of Lake Ontario. It's really a beautiful campus. We have 110 programs and growing. Our online program is growing, exponentially, really. We have somewhere between 8,000 and 8,500 students if we start including online students. About 1,200 faculty and staff. We do have a centralized IT team. Now, that's not to say that we don't have professionals that work in certain departments at their own kind of masters of their own domain. But we all kind of work collaboratively together. We have about 9 Mac labs, and we have about 2,900 Apple devices, and that includes iPhones, iPads, basically anything that has an Apple sticker on it. We threw that in there. And it's not inexact because we also have our residential network, and that gets kind of pulled differently. But roughly, I'd like to say that Chris and I are in charge of 2,900 Macs, give or take. So that kind of gives you kind of where we're at. And I really love the quote up there. We do what we can with what we have, where we are. That's from Theodore Roosevelt. Basically, and I think that's something that I pick up at this conference and every conference is we're all on the same team. We're really just trying to do maybe not it's the best thing or the best thing out there, but what's best for your environment that you can afford, that you can learn, and that you can handle. And I think that's an important thing to talk about is because in our presentation going forward, there's a lot of better solutions out there. There's Monkey, there's Autopkg, there's Jamf. They can handle things far better for maybe your environment. But for us, looking at us, and there's just Chris and I, and the other responsibilities we have to do, what we're going to show you works for us, and it works pretty flawlessly. And we have to give the solution to people who may not want to dabble in the terminal or a GUI that needs updating all the time. This is just kind of a very secure, informed version of how to deploy Macs quickly and efficiently. But that being said, I know there's other products out there. I would love to use them. We have some limitations of our own that we'll talk about, that we have to use certain things. All right? So, how we used to deploy?
So, the way we used to deploy is Apple would release a new model. We would eventually buy this new model, whether it's an iMac or MacBook or Mac Mini or whatever, and first thing we would do is we would wipe out whatever was on it. And we would go to the App Store, get the latest build of the OS from the App Store, make a boot stick out of it, put it on what we just bought and wiped, so it had the latest drivers from the latest build, and then we'd install what software we wanted on it and set up different user accounts, and we'd make a giant disk image out of it. So now, towards the end of when we stopped doing this, we had a 55, 60 gig disk image just sitting on our network, and it was static. And so once it was on our network, our technicians and everybody else who needed it would download it and put it on USB drives. They put it in their own file shares on their own side of their network. They'd put it wherever they could get a hold of it on their own Macs or wherever, and then they would deploy it out to an individual basis on a one-on-one. So they'd get a new computer that they need to image, and they'd put our giant disk image on that new computer and then give it to the faculty. And this worked all right enough. It wasn't great, but then Apple would release a new model, and then we would have to go back, get that new model, start all over, wipe it out, download a new build from the App Store, create a new disk image, and then everybody would have to go get it again. And with Apple releasing a new model every 3 to 4 months, it was just a continually ongoing process that took a lot of time. And then what was happening was some technicians wouldn't go get the latest disk image we built. So then they were trying to install a disk image on a machine that it didn't have drivers for, and they'd boot it up after they put the disk image on there, and it just wouldn't work at all. They'd get gray screens and they'd get power failures. So then they'd have to, they'd be emailing Dave and I, well, I use this disk image from October. Why isn't, it's now January, why isn't this working? So then we, tell them that there's either a new one out there or we'd have to go create a new one. And it was just this ongoing, very time-consuming process for us.
And just like to Chris's point, and before we go through, I hope this sounds familiar to what some people have been doing, or at least remember doing this, right? Is that the Google talk in the very first session was great. Google's paranoid, and Google should be. We're just a state school, but yet we had this illusion that we had to erase the hard drives. And moving forward in our new procedure, we were like, well, why? Everything's right there. You got to kind of give to take. So we would erase these hard drives that are pretty current. Then we'd follow this, do software updates, install specific software, set up a user account, and then we would make this big 30 gig plus image. And the biggest problem, that's why I have, dude, where's my DMG, is we would have DMGs not necessarily stored on a network space in one place, but people would store them everywhere because it was a lot faster to save it, target mode onto a FireWire 800 drive or whatever you're fortunate enough to have, and blast it. Yes, we do know there's NetBoot. Our network environment decides that doesn't work so well, and they don't want us to do that because if you're in our boat, a lot of times networking really scrutinizes over what the Mac people do. So you kind of get why we had to change, and to kind of praise Chris here. It was just me before Chris came, so I was doing this for like 12 years, and it really stinked.
Very time consuming.
And when things go wrong, we're the first people to blame. So when things are working, it's great. See some heads nodding like, yup, and it works. But the minute it goes wrong, what's everyone's problem? So we had to change it, and we were happy to change it. So we burnt that to the ground. We were like, we're done. And we had a little bit of free time. And our new setup, hey, Apple just released a new model. Yay, let's get one. Same thing, we open up the box. And really, I'm going to come back to this point. What I want when I started doing this was I want the out-of-the-box kind of setup. We take it out of the box. We can have our interns take it out of the box. They plug it into either some sort of connection. And when I say network connection, that's Thunderbolt, FireWire 800, anything that could be networked, given an IP address, all right, or an actual network. But plug it in. We enable remote desktop. We enroll it in our profile manager. You need that network connection, and we point it to Apple Remote Desktop. One more, please. All right. So we also have, and I'll discuss in a little bit, we used to have Xserves, which were awesome. We replaced those with some Mac Minis. And those are kind of the brains and the brawn behind what we're doing. What they do is they keep our Macs updated using software update server, which is great. It keeps our package current using Autopkgr, which is a GUI to Autopkg, which if I had to rename this presentation, I would have included that in there. I wasn't really thinking. But what that does is we have these two servers constantly gathering and checking and making sure things are the most up to date. And it puts it into one area where Chris and I can review to make sure those packages are not going to break anything. We slide it into production where our techs, our desktop support technicians, can easily follow these workflows that we have in Apple Remote Desktop. So they're hitting that familiar play button that they're used to in iTunes, and they're pushing packages. The nice thing about that is it's modular. Office 2016 came out last night. So Chris is like, let's add that to our demonstration. Just move one thing to another and we're done. So it's very simple to do. It's very fast, and that's a little asterisk. It depends on what you're connecting. If you're using Thunderbolt, it's going to be a lot faster than 10 base T. But for the most part, it's very fast and allows for granular deployments, because not all if all of your faculty are the same, I would hope you're hiring. All of our faculty have different needs, but they get more or less the same base package. But if one faculty needs a certain package, we can go out using Autopkgr, grab it, add it, deploy it, and keep things pretty consistent and updated. And it's a great, I can't speak highly enough about it, so much so that we're doing a presentation on it. So, kind of the hardware we're using. This is our server room for our Macs. They give us one rack that we have to share with Sun, which is okay. We have the two Mac Minis sitting on top of our two old X servers, because for one, we didn't really know a good way of racking them that our server group would allow. But also, there's a lot of hard drive space in those two X servers. I didn't really want to throw them away, because I like holding on to old Apple stuff. So eventually, those will be in my office probably as relics. But there's 750 gig hard drives in each one of those. So why not turn those into target disk boot mode type of arrays, using a few scripts, connect them to the the Mac Minis, and now I have a ton of space. Because when you do software updates and you're downloading that constantly, it grows. It's a lot of space. And that doesn't necessarily need to be the fastest. It doesn't need to be on an SSD, but it could be on that. So we're really using those two bottom X servers merely as backups, and to store our caching server, which we'll talk about, our software server, and our packages. They're all redundant. They're connected Thunderbolt to Thunderbolt, and then to a gigabit switch to our core. So I'm going to get into a few of the apps, or the few of the pieces of the puzzle that we're using, and then Chris will show a little demo we have. So I hope everyone here is familiar with the server, APP. El Capitan's coming out, and that should be great, hopefully. But it's only $20, and it really is just an app, and it's really not scary to use at all. I hope everyone here has used it, I hope, or if, don't be scared.
We're seeing it,
Play with it, play with it, all right? But it includes the update server, profile manager, and caching server, which we're using, which is nice. It comes right out of the box. I'm kind of a Linux and terminal person, but again, the people that are in this more than we are, they need to see the red, green, and yellow lights. They need to see the go, and that's what we needed. Because again, it's just the two of us, so when something goes wrong, and we're supporting two other, basically, colleges within our university, we have to go back and stop. This is great. So, the first thing I like to point out is, and I pulled this number before the presentation when we found out we were here, I wanted to know how many updates our software update server was pushing. And Apple doesn't really give you a good way to do that. We have enterprise support through Apple Select, so we pay a bunch of money every year to get 10 incidences. And as I'm going to use an incident and find out, they said they're not allowed to tell me that information, but if I looked hard enough in this area, I would find the information I need, because they're pretty great. If you don't have that, it's a little plug. Take a look at that. But we were using over 760 gigs of data we were pushing out to our clients.
Since January.
Since January.
Of 2015.
So that's awesome. So that's all data updates, software updates that we're pushing to our clients that doesn't have to be pulled from Apple land, offsite our campus. And again, and I'm not, I love our networking team, but they may be doing a little bit of packet shaping, a little bit of throttling. You know what I'm talking about. This is on campus. They can't, well, now they can probably after they watch this, but they don't do too much. So we can get these updates really quickly. Because one of the first steps we do when we put it out of the box is we want the most current update. Real simple to do, real fast to do. It also allows us to manage our updates. So if we have a graphics art department and they want to go to the preview copy of something or migrate to something, we can just disable that and they can't get to it. For the most part, that works pretty good. And I'd be happy to tell anybody how that's done later. I just didn't want to get too nerdy in this conversation here. Caching server.
The caching server basically just hangs out in the background, and when someone downloads an app from the App Store, whether it's through their iPhone or through their Mac, it downloads a copy to the person's phone, but it also keeps a copy on our caching server. And the next time someone requests that, if it's the same version, instead of getting it from Apple, the next person will be directed towards our caching server. So it helps us keep it in our own network. But the caching server doesn't get its data or its apps until somebody requests it from the App Store. And then it sees what it's doing. It says, oh, Chris Palian just got 1Password version 4.2. So I'll get my own version on my phone, but then it will keep a version on the caching server.
So, and to add to that, because I know kind of what I hope someone's saying, you have 760 gigs, but you only have 20 gigs of caching. That doesn't make sense because we have more Apple devices, right? So before anyone calls us out on that, our networking is very, very, very secure, is what we'll say, and it's based on subnet. So with the caching server, things are subnet blocked, and we'd have to move either the caching server to a DMZ where all of our subnets can see it, or not. So the 20 gigs is really mostly our CTS department who is on that subnet that can pull it. So we really like it. And a next step would be to try and convince the people we need to convince to put the caching server out in the wild so we can enjoy that, because it does get used. So that's why it's so small. It really should, I almost think, be higher than our software update server, but for right now, that's what it is. And then we have Profile Manager, which we don't. It's tough because originally Profile Manager was an MDM solution, or at least that's what I thought it was supposed to be. And then, and I can hear it, but Apple did a pretty good job for the price. It's free, so I can enroll all of my desktops, my laptops, and my mobile devices into one area and do pretty much what I need to do. I'm not concerned. We don't have any of our iOS devices using cellular. All right, they're all wireless. So we can't really do remote wipes, even if we wanted to, unless they were connected to a network or Wi-Fi. As I said, our network is very secure, so these two servers aren't in the DMZ, so if I'm off campus, I can't really phone home anyhow. So really concerned with on-campus use here. So the Profile Manager allows us to do a bunch of fun things, including the activation lock, because if we do get it back, now it's on campus. Someone set the activation lock, we can just wipe it out and not have to worry about it because it's taken care of. It does the volume purchase programming apps, which is awesome because we're saving money. We also can push it to students, see if they're not using it, take it away. So the college is saving money, kind of tracking. A professor says they want Angry Birds, and we look and only 15 students have downloaded our copy of the paid version of Angry Birds. We can go back and say we're not going to get it for you next semester. It wasn't a use. And we use it for inventory control. So we can see how many things are being used, if they're up to speed, they're up to compliance, and it's a very nice web portal, all right? So we can allow granular use. And I'll talk right about Profile Manager. We're using, just like I said earlier, making profiles. So we can use this even to make 802.1x profiles, kind of like the old iPhone configurator tool. And this is very much like Apple Configurator. In fact, if you hit Create Profile on Apple Configurator, it looks pretty darn close to creating a profile, except it's not a web page.
Almost all the settings are identical, so if it's in one, it's probably in the other.
More or less, yeah. So, I just have a few things up there. I don't really feel like reading off the slide too terribly much. But some of the great things we can do is we can set up, the remote management and the power settings. So one of the biggest things we have, again, we don't have Wake on LAN. We want Wake on LAN. We understand the benefit, but for some reason we don't. So one of the things is we set a schedule up to have the machines turn off at 12 at night, 12:01 actually, and then restart up at 7 in the morning. So in our labs, at least I know they're all going to be turned on. All right, it's kind of an important thing. That way I can blast images, pass packages, just see what's up, regular health checks. The other thing too is this isn't static. So for whatever reason, if I want to change something, all right, say our software update server changes, or we want to change the power settings, I can just pull this down, blast it, and it connects to all the machines as it goes through and changes it. So it's just not a static setting, it's a real-time control setting. You can specify that certain steps in Setup Assistant are skipped. We really haven't gotten there yet. It's something we want to do. And that involves the device enrollment program, which is kind of a fun, tricky beast in itself. And I think by this time next year, we'll have that locked down a little better. Right now, our problem is instead of everything coming from one purchase order or one PO, we have many POs under SUNY Oswego, so we have to pull them in. That gives us the codes that input into Profile Manager. So it's a little tricky. Apple Remote Desktop, I hope everyone here is familiar with it. I think it kind of gets played off as, I don't know, not as powerful or as cool as it could be. But it allows us to quickly and very fast automate modular packages. So, to the Office 2016 example, we just pulled out the package, put it back in, and we can let our DSTs go out and install it. Even though we're not going to use that because that's not the volume purchase part of Office 2016, we could if we wanted to. It's easy to lock down and hard to mess up because, again, the DSTs are great, very intelligent people. So I'm not trying to poke a stick at them, but they would tell us they break things a lot and we have to fix them. Here we can put only things we want on that allow them to do things. It's pretty nice, and it also allows for Unix and automated scripts. So there's really nothing I can't do in Apple Remote Desktop. So, I mean, that's the truth. If you can do it in Unix, you pretty much can send it in Apple Remote Desktop or whip up a quick script and shoot it across. And it's cheap. It's $79. All right, we also decided, we also have lab stats, but we started looking at doing app usage using Apple Remote Desktop. So every client saves app usage and user history to a database. You just export that database to some place, maybe your Mac Mini server, and you're collecting a ton of information about app usage. Because at the end of the day, our higher-ups want to know what apps are being used and should we continue purchasing them. Because software is expensive. And a lot of faculty require and ask for software that necessarily don't use. So that's another piece of the puzzle we're using. Yeah?
When you talk about other inventory reports,
yeah.
Does that include like hardware asset analysis?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for asking. So the question was, what other inventory reports do we include? And if you were to go to that website on top, they really do a great job of showing. They give reports from everything from the actual hardware down to the bus speed. It's actually too much. I end up checking and saving templates, and it's fairly quick. And if you do configure it, you can set to go every day, even if it's going asleep, and it will shoot it to the server, so it's like offline mode of the last report you ran. I think I saw a hand over there.
Yeah, are you mostly desktops, or if not, you find it limited because the client has to be online?
That's a great question. And I think once you see so our new model is, the question was, are we mostly desktops and do they have to be online in order for this to all work, right, basically? We're a split. We have a ton of laptops, a ton of iMacs, tons of Mac Pros. We're really across the board. The one thing is our Mac community really stands true to Wi-Fi. So really they're always connected to Wi-Fi for the most part. And the client already comes built into almost every one of the machines we have. I think they started doing that in 10.6 or 10.7. So the client is already there. So there's tons of Kickstart Apple scripts, one-liners that enable ARD to connect. And once that's connected, it can be seen in our deployment, and we can communicate with them. So it hasn't been an issue, in that regard. Yes, if they're offline, or if yes, they're turned off, this is an issue. But for the most part, we haven't run into that.
All of our labs are almost all iMacs, but our faculty computers, the ones that's like designated to a certain person, those are almost all MacBooks or MacBook Pro Retinas. That we have very few people who want an iMac in their office.
So we're a good mix. So back, speedy fingers. Oh no.
Did you let it go back?
Maybe not. Well, anyhow, we were going to talk about. It was really quick to deploy. All right, we're deploying a bunch of stuff. Too far.
Yeah. Hold on. It'll take a minute. Keep going.
All right. So we were able to take the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite and deploy that fairly quickly. Now we're using sometimes Thunderbolt, but more times than not, we're using a gigabit switch, and we're getting the most out of it. But we're really throwing down a lot of packages quickly and getting it out the door. Because when faculty get new machines, we want to be able to just take it and get it. And during our summer months, it's life cycle for us. So we're really going through machines left and right. So we don't want to have to be able to really deal with it other than get it out of the box, boom, and we go. Some of the troubles we run into is, faculty request ArcGIS or some program, simple enough, we just make a package for it, or we pull a package from Autopkg, and I'll talk about that in a second. Someone's already done it, and it's there. Like I said, it's on all the client machines. It's kind of a no-brainer for us to turn it on. And I've been using it since 2005. And since 2005, people have told me it's going to go away and Apple doesn't care about it. But it's been like 10 years, and it keeps on getting better. But it is Apple. It could go away tomorrow. But we don't really have that much in stock invested in it. And there's great products that I just mentioned before that we could always turn to. Next. Yep. So Autopkg. We all should know what that is. I'm not going to read it. It's awesome. Monkey fans, huge, right? But there's no real GUI. Well, there is a GUI. Next slide. And that's Autopkgr. Again, we want GUIs not because we don't know what we're doing, but when Chris and I are away, if something goes wrong, we need people to get in there and play. And it makes the app very easy to install. It also installs Get What You Need. It installs Autopkg automatically, which you need. It discovers the subscriptions and allows you to search for recipes. So when I first started getting into this whole recipe, monkey, packages, everything, I didn't know where to look for packages or recipes, like what I wanted. And you'd search and you'd see a long list in GitHub and you're like, what is this? You could read each thing, but I just want to know kind of the meat and the potatoes, and then go, that's what I want. Now I'll read how to do it. So it really allows you to go through. It's a good picture. This is Autopkg. You hit the one button, hits install. These are the repositories. You can choose a bunch, and probably half the developers and people are at this conference that made this. But you can scan through. Oh, there's the Firefox PKG. You'll note that there's Monkey. There's also Casper, if you wanted that, or just the download. You can go next. You can set it up to check every 4 hours. I have it set to check every 24 hours. It goes out, checks my repositories, see if there's an update. If there is, it sends me an email. Because I don't want these brand new updates going right into production. I want to test them first. And usually it's just, installing it, okay, it opened up, but I still want to know about it. So we're always one version behind pretty much everything we give out. All right, this is just us looking at coconut battery. Yep, there's some stuff. We can take that, okay? So Chris is going to show a little demo real quick. We were kind of concerned about doing a live demo after the Wi-Fi going up and down. So last night we hopped on a mobile hotspot and did some recordings. So we're going to show you some live movies from last night of this. And then as he's setting this up, if you have any questions, let us know. Any questions so far about this? And again, I can't stress, it's not so much geared towards, this is a solution for everybody. We're a pretty big campus and we support quite a bit. It really comes down to there's just 2 of us doing it. So we need something that we can manage. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, quick question for profiles. Are you using Apple Push successfully, or do you deploy them otherwise?
It's a great question. Are we using Apple Push? The question is, for Profile Manager, are we using Apple Push successfully? And the answer is kind of. Because it depends really, it depends on how you do it, right? So one of the ways we did it, because we also have these iPad pilot projects, and we have a ton of iPads, and faculty are wanting this and that. One of the easiest ways we set up Profile Manager is we just added the students. And then we sent the invites to students through Profile Manager, and they kind of auto-enroll themselves. And when they do that, it works great. Push works wonderfully, right? But to do system pushes, just to push to the iPad itself, you're going to have to need probably a different MDM solution, whether it's like Echo 365 or FileWave or something here that can do that. But for us, because we don't have cellular iPads, a lot of those features don't really matter, at least to us right now. So it's a great question, and it does work quite well.
This is just a quick overview of our Autopkg. We always have it running on our Mac server.
This is our Mac server?
This is actually our Mac server. That's Dave's puppy from 8 years ago.
Yeah, she's cute.
So this is what Autopkg looks like. We saw the initial screen. Here's our list of repos. Repos are just places where all the recipes are held. So once you're tied in with a repo. You can pick and choose what recipes you want.
And there's a lot out there.
Tons.
I mean,
and there's probably more than we have even listed in here, but.
So you can add other repos. So if you met someone here and they have a really cool package, you can add your own repo. All right, you can say, hey, this person has a great thing I want. He's doing exactly what I want. Grab it. And it'll go every 24 hours because it's Git. Communities are updating, finding the packages. It's always going out.
So we have ours set to run every 24 hours. Every 24 hours, it looks at the recipes and sees if there's new versions or new recipes out there that it can get new software off of. And then this is where we have all the folders directing for the cache and the repos. It's directing to the user's profile. So this is a quick demo of how we use ARD.
So pause for a sec. So I mean, if you can see up here, so up here, and that's kind of a bad resolution, I apologize. You can create kind of packages and workflows. So we have all these wonderful packages that Autopkg and Autopkgr grab for us, and we know they're good. So we've just set up, one of them is install fax staff software. That's a series of about 6 or 7 packages that goes right through the list. All right, but these are set so we can give the information to our students or our desktop support technicians, set the update server real quick, copy the trust and enroll profile, hit go on install faculty software, and it goes right through, and that gives us, and he'll show you the leverage of being able to pull things out, pick and choose.
So the first thing I did was I had to add the machine to ARD. So I went through and add the machine with the admin username and profile and password. And it checks and verifies it, makes sure the password's good. The first step I did was I had it set it to the update services to our Mac server. And that's just a Unix command that we put in there and then tell it to run. And it changes it from Apple's update servers to our update server. So here, I'm going in, and like Dave said earlier, we had Office 2011 being pushed out, the installer. So I just removed that. I find where I downloaded the PKG of 2016 that I got yesterday. And I save it, and now our package is updated with Office 2016 instead of 2011. I drag the Mac in there that I want to add the software to and hit go. This is time-lapse right here because I didn't think we all wanted to be staring at the screen for 2.5 minutes. But it is very fast. We're doing over a Thunderbolt network. You can see like I said, it is time-lapsed, but the entire process took 2 minutes and 5 seconds to download Office 2016, or to install Office 2016, Acrobat Pro, Flash, Chrome, Firefox, Silverlight, and 2 different versions of Java. And that's going over Thunderbolt or Gigabit from an SSD to an SSD.
So when we do this using, a gigabit switch and just regular cable, it's typically
and iMacs without SSDs.
It's typically 8 minutes to 10 minutes, depending on the server connection, because we're connected to our network. We're not a closed network, so depending what else is going on, it's there, But that's still a lot better than our hour to 2 hours worth of what we were doing before. Yeah. It's a great question, which was how many machines are you doing at a time? I've done personally up to 35 at a time doing this. The problem is we're limited by our switch size, right? He mentioned, I think last night, wouldn't it be great to do a Thunderbolt daisy chain type configuration? Oh my God, can you imagine?
Usually I do about 10 in my office.
Right. So, everything we do, we're really binded or stopped by our network and our network infrastructure. So we have a wonderful, who makes the Cisco switch, I think.
Cisco switches.
That has 24 ports. That is down where they do repairs. The School of Business is very nice. They purchased me a larger switch, so I can carry it around if I wanted to. but you are kind of binded by that. The other thing you can do as well is you can do this wirelessly. You don't need to be jacked in. So if you were to put this on our campus wireless, you can do it over the wire. And that's about 10 to 15 minutes depending on the building and everything too. So we haven't really gotten higher than about 30 or 35, but the rates they don't grow as fast as you'd think. It's still pretty quick and pretty fast.
So here I created a Unix command to enable cups because most of the computers I end up deploying, we have to go through a cups interface to add the printers. So I just made a quick Unix command to enable the cups interface. Make it go a little bit faster. This is our profile manager on the server. This is time-lapsed, but the whole process to create this MacAdmins test group that we wanted to make of this profile took about 6 minutes and 15 seconds. And you can see we're just going through, picking out different settings that we want to change. So we're adding security settings, we're changing passcodes, we're changing the energy settings.
And it does look a lot like Apple Configurator, like I said. And it really doesn't take 6 minutes. It took 6 minutes because we were kind of poking around.
Picking and choosing and going around. Yeah, if you know what you're doing, you can make a profile in a couple minutes. Something that we don't use because we use deep freeze, so we make everyone an administrator of the machine. And for our faculty side, they're administrators and they can pretty much do what they want anyhow. And because the refresh rate is so quick, if you're an administrator and you hose your machine, they know that we're just going to plug it back in and you're going to get a fresh machine. But you can get very granular on the security. You can choose for them not to allow this, or do this at a certain time, or start something up in particular. You can even choose what background they're going to be. So you can tell them, well, we want everyone to have the same background, and it's going to be background.jpg on the root of the hard drive, and that will pick up and lock the desktop picture right onto that background. You can also choose login settings, how you want when people start up the computer, how it looks when they log in with just a name and password or with icons.
You can bind it to Active Directory or domain if you choose. You can include your 802.1x settings for your network. Really, I encourage everyone just to go out there and to see all the settings. So once you see all the settings, it's like...
There's a lot. And you can pick dock size and magnification levels and many of the things in system preferences you can pick and pick for people. So here, I'm choosing what the people are going to have in their dock. We want them to have Word, Excel, PowerPoint in their dock.
For this presentation.
For this MacAdmins group we created.
So the only thing that kind of stinks about this, because again, nothing is perfect, is in order for these to show up, these apps, right down in that area, wherever, they have to be installed on your server. Which is kind of, I don't know, lame. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, really? Why do I have to install everything to show up, which I'm never going to use on my server, right? Like, do you ever use it? But it stinks. So last night, install Office 2016, we couldn't use the same profile because that's 2011. Yeah.
It's the same thing with, we had a 10 server 6, for example, you use MCX and you wanted to put stuff in the box.
Great question.
You had to have program on your machine.
He was just saying that it's pretty much like MCX. And this is kind of, I think, where Apple is moving away from. Yeah. I just hope they learn that stinks, right? I mean, we want to be able to do a little more. We can put the applications folder down there. We can set up printing, all sorts of fun stuff. And like I said, if we make groups. So if we put our president of the college in a group and she doesn't like something, we don't have to run out and do it. We can change it on the profile manager. Because it's on our network and has network connectivity, it will change it. If it doesn't, it gets queued, and next time it is on our network, it will get those settings. So, this is our lab season. We're changing things. We can go in and change things very quickly.
So we created a group called MacAdmins Demo Group, and when we installed the profile, this is the profile manager still. We searched out the Mac that we installed the profile on.
That's the Mac in the upper.
That's the Mac in the corner. We add the device to that group right here in the main window. We save the settings, so now it's saved in the group.
And if you can see, there's an active.
And there's the active task.
And
this is the end client computer. You can see how the background changed. The new doc came up with Word, PowerPoint, Excel in it.
And this is what gives us the standardization when we image a machine, because what would happen would be we'd have many people image machines, too many hands in the cookie jar, and why was this person not given this or that, or it's just because it's not in the doc. So they still can change things afterwards, but we want to kind of give that unified CTS feel when we put it out the door.
And you can set it so they can't change it afterwards. If you want every single one of your computers to look identical, no matter what the user feels, you can set that up where they can't change the dock no matter what, or they can't change the background no matter
and
what.
We tried that, and that did not go over well.
It lasted about a day.
It did not go over. Yeah.
As far as, you gave the example of the president.
Yes.
Some changes done.
Sure.
Let's say she's at her home.
Yes.
Can she VPN in and have those changes pushed down that way?
Well, see, our president lives on campus in a wonderful, beautiful house. She's already on campus. So that's a kind of an interesting question. But his question is, if they're not home and they're not on our network, but they want those changes, how do we do it? Absolutely. So they enable our VPN client. That's what we were doing last night, actually, with our machines here.
So you can see the AntiConnect client.
Our AntiConnect is running to do that, exactly. And in a perfect world, we would much rather have at least one of our servers in the DMZ reachable to anybody, so we don't have to deal with VPNs. Because I don't like VPNs, especially ones built on Java. Sorry, Java people out there. But that's what you can do, absolutely. So we really want to get a jump-off point to push these settings out to people out there. And that would solve a lot of MDM problems that we have. Absolutely.
To answer your question, we don't have it that way right now because of our network. But if we changed our network or if we did things a little bit differently, we could. But right now, pretty much to be good, you have to be on campus, to get those type of changes.
Way in back.
How are you getting profiles and packages to machines after imaging? How do you do remediation, like a new version of Flash? It sounds like you're actually plugging in 30 devices at a time, 1% of your network.
I follow what you're saying. So his question is, life after deployment, right? They're out in the wild, how are we updating them? So we take a kind of a two-step approach. One is, if you're an administrator, with great power comes great responsibility. And if faculty and staff want administrative power, we're not going to tell them they can't do updates. That seems kind of like, a weird oxymoron almost, right? You can do whatever you want, but you're not going to be in charge of updates. So, we talked about LandDesk. LandDesk promised a portal, a self-service, to do these updates. But what happens is these are all in our profile manager, and they're all in these device groups. So now with Apple Remote Desktop, we can send out packages as needed, or the actual users, the end users, will take care of their updates for them. Our biggest thing is we didn't want to give out, back to that old model, we were taking these images, deploying them to faculty, and it had the 15 older versions of Chrome. The minute these faculty were getting their machines, they were already outdated, already calling back the help desk, being like, I just got a brand new machine, but I have to do 13 or 14 different updates. So, and I know where you're saying, getting with this is, and it's really spot on, is we need a way to keep it updated, but we really allow that on the end user. Because we have a lot of fun programs that they necessarily don't need the updated version of Flash or the updated version of Java, because it breaks our accounting systems.
Yeah. Our labs, we keep in ARD all the time, and those get updated on a regular basis. Right. Our fact staff machines, it was a big point in the university that everyone wanted to be their own admin. So when they wanted to install, Angry Birds or whatever else that wasn't in the App Store or whatever, they could just go anywhere and get anything at any time. And that's where we kind of cut the cord a little bit and said, okay, well, if they're their own admins, then they're their own admins. If they need help, they can call up the help desk and go through that way. So there's, right now with most of our fact staff, there's not an automated process in place to keep them going afterwards. We put it on them, basically.
And to your point too, remember, the clause in the very beginning is we're dealing with what we have and the restrictions of what we have based on people higher up. So one of the biggest problems we had, because we have so many mobile devices, they would take them off campus and they're not an administrator now. Or maybe they can't add a printer, or they can't change Wi-Fi, or they can't just do a simple update, like Skype. So what do?
And some faculty will take their laptops home and then just never come back with them until, because there's a PC in every classroom. So if they're not in their office, a lot of times they'll just keep their laptop at home with them and it won't ever come back to campus. And the way our network's set up is we wouldn't be able to reach them and they wouldn't be able to reach our servers anyways.
And then we have half of our campus leaves overseas during the summer months for vacation. So that's, it's a whole other bag of worms. But realistically, we do have those updated packages. So if someone were to call the help desk up and they weren't comfortable with updating their machine, we have those packages that are current tested. Our help desk staff, our tier 1 staff, can easily just push those packages through ARD, or because it's a package, really any way they have to get that package on. Does that answer your question? I mean, like I said, there's so many different ways out there and so many probably more efficient ways, and we know it, we've tried it, but because of our campus and our, I hope we're not alone here. I hope some people are like, yeah, that's kind of us. We just have to do what we have to do to get the job done at the day, and that's one of them. Was there any other questions? I thought I might have saw a hand up. All right, so the good, bad, and the about this whole thing. It does scale very well to our environment, and it's cheap. All right, so you're talking $79 for ARD, which I don't think there's a limit, really, on how many machines you can connect to.
Not really.
Not anymore. The client is installed free. You just have to turn it on. It's all Unix-based, so you can get your geek on pretty hard if you wanted to, which is great. We can prepare a lot of multiple machines all at once. We went from probably, I think, an hour to 2 hours because we would make the image, and then you'd have to upload the image or save the image into a DMG. And you have to find it later with the right name, and then pull it down and then boot stick it. 1 to 2 hours if it was just a normal image. It's less time consuming by at least, I think you said 10 minutes to 15 minutes. We found that even though that sounds like no one would want to do it, people resisted change. So actually they only resisted change when this system didn't work. Why can't we go back to the old model of doing this and basically deploying really outdated images? But when it works, they all have a smile on their faces, and they really enjoy it, and they really enjoy the speed. We pride ourselves on always trying to be a faster, better, more efficient deployment solution than our Windows team, and I think we've hit that all the time right now. It's not a shot at them, it just gives them something to strive for, I guess, right?
We've tried several local distribution points for ARD, just creating basically mini islands all over campus for our other technicians, and we found that they'd get in there, they'd change things around, so then it was becoming ununiformed again. So we ended up recalling all those and just going back to, okay, now we're using this one server that Dave and I control, and everyone can get into it, but they're put into a simple finder mode, and they can access ARD, but nothing else.
Parental controls are your friends, right?
So, and since then, it's been a much more consistent process for everybody, since everyone's using, now, and Dave and myself still have our own little islands in our office, so we don't have to use the main server, but our setups in our office are basically clones of the server.
Exactly, and to that too, the map part of it is, this only works with basically the latest version of the OS. It works on Mavericks and iOS and up, but the really cool features are at iOS 8 and up and 10.10 and up. So that being said too, changes are coming soon too, and it's Apple, and you never know if they're going to take something away or it's going to be better. So we really, again, we don't have a lot invested, so we could say, you know what, now is time to jump to Monkey, or now is the time to go to Jamf. But for right now, it's pretty straightforward. Some lessons learned, and this is really important stuff that we learned. You got to be on good terms with your network team. Not so much as a bandwidth hog, but they're going to see it. They're going to see things at weird times, just blasting stuff down. In terms of subnetting alone.
Yeah, making sure firewalls are opened up and that one subnet can communicate with the subnet, another one. And
so it uses the VNC port. It's 58 or 59,000. So a lot of network administrators are like, ooh, VNC, it's evil. It's really not. And it's very secure. You can secure the traffic too if you really wanted to. But it does rely on the Macs being able to communicate back to the update server, and you need to have ARD turned on. So one of the things that we found where faculty are really worried about being spied on. I don't know if you know that or not. I don't know what they're doing. I wouldn't want to be spied on, but whatever. So we have to, at the end of our workflow process, we run a script that disables ARD. So if they were to call up with an issue, they have to double click it. We do leave on remote login. Could turn on ARD if we want, but ARD itself is not running. Remote management is. So is Profile Manager. All right, so that's kind of their security blanket of everything, even though we still, I mean, there's tons of other tools on there that we could get in if we really wanted to. But the goggles and the icon really freak people out. I need to change that. You know, it's a horrible icon. But if you document everything, it's going to help, especially people grasp how this works, which we've tried to do. And with documentation, I've heard a lot of great things about it. But we're a Google campus on top of that. We have Google Docs. We put something up in a Google Docs and it stays completely organic and dynamic, where it's not just this is documentation from last year. It's the DSTs say, this isn't working right, make a comment. We look at it and we constantly grow and build it and keep it fresh. Because documentation that's old or 3 years old, that's the first thing I look at documentation is how old is it? You know, the date, it's 6 years old, this is going to have some issues. So keep it up to date and you'll find it's one pager. Next steps?
Yeah. The next steps, we want to use DEP to skip some of the setup assistant steps. When you're just turning on the computer for the first time, we want to improve data transfer rates, make things even faster than 2 minutes. We are thinking about trying to create like local subnet versions with headless Macs, so that way people can't really get into them. You basically just plug in a machine, get it ready, get it on the network, and then the server, the headless Mac, just takes over, finds out there's a new machine on that network, and starts hammering it with the software it needs and the profile and everything else it needs. I'm trying to automate the process further so that way there's less interaction for technicians. You know, all you have to do is just go through a minimal setup assistant, plug it into the network, and walk away. And 15 minutes later, you come back, everything's perfect. That would be an ideal setup, which is one of the things we're trying to go for.
So questions, yeah. Oh, see, you're trying, all right, so the question was, why does our network team care? Are you in New York State at all? Is this a loaded question? Yeah, right? That's, I mean, we can talk about, I don't know. They're first worried about concern, and they're worried about us slowing down the network and taking down other services. All right? I agree with you. No, I mean, I've said that to myself. Oh yeah.
Very new.
I wish this wasn't being recorded. I mean, you know, that's what I'm saying. That's tough to answer. I mean, they are really concerned about multicasting, and they're really concerned about how Apple does updating. So they've throttled that down, which led us to our software update. All right, they've really been concerned about NetBoot, because NetBoot can, in their words, this isn't me, you know, take down the world basically. So we've had to find these little loopholes or band-aids to get things done. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's the question we had. That should have been our first slide. Is we don't know really why, other than they want to be secure and they want something better than
their domain, right?
It is their domain.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly. Spot on.
You're into their, yeah.
Exactly. And that's where, you know, like Monkey, Deploy Studio, really they're strong on those things, but we would get roadblocked. We would have a bad experience because, not because of the product, because of our networking infrastructure.
During a typical school day, we probably have 5,000 to 6,000 people on campus. Every one of them probably has a laptop. Everyone probably has a cell phone on the wireless. We have thousands of lab and classroom computers on the network all at the same time. I'm sure that they're very worried that, you know, we try and image 15 machines at once and 10 students can't watch Netflix or something, and then 10 parents call up the president saying their kid can't watch Netflix on the academic campus during the middle of the day or something.
That's really the slogan. I should get a T-shirt next year of that. Why do they care? I don't know. We're all on the same team.
But,
was there another question? Up front.
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. If they allow you to push out stuff for ARD,
yes.
I'm assuming they don't have 480 codes. You could run Monkey on that same server.
See, you're assuming wrong. The question was, hey, you're doing this, and Monkey can do this too, and it's port 80. But they like to watch what's going on port 80, all right? And they'll see, that's what goes back to having good communication with this and that, letting our network team know. So the nice thing about this model too is that we don't necessarily have to go through our network. We can go on a closed network as well. Like we were discussing Thunderbolt, and because it's on our server subnet as well, they like to monitor, and as they should, right? Because our servers are on the server subnet. They're seeing a lot of packages, and they don't want to see a lot of packages go through on port 80 on our server subnet. So a question I would ask to our team would be like, why can't we move this to the lab subnet? No, you don't want a server in the lab subnet because of security. You can't win, right? And that's really, again, we're doing what we can do with what we have to get a good 10-minute image, and that's why. We played with Monkey, it was great, but then it was networking, and you have too many things to jump over, where at the end of the day, we needed something to work pretty quickly in a short amount of time. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Any other questions? Or?
Yeah. To print, we are. The question was, are we using Profile Manager to manage our printers? We're just getting into that. That is absolutely right. So I don't know what Chris mentioned. They moved all of our print servers to Windows print servers. And then they have the LPD and LPR issues, and we have these wonderful Rico biz hubs.
One of the things they did when they moved all the printers to Windows printer servers is they also put it on their own printer subnet. And now no PC, no laptop can talk to a printer directly. They all have to go through the Windows print servers. So they all communicate with the Windows print server, and then the server communicates with the printer itself.
So we're looking at doing that.
So,
in short,
yeah,
we're trying to enable the new CUPS version, right? Because they've updated, Apple made CUPS 2.0, and we're working on that. We're also looking at like Active Directory. So if we were to bind, was that your question? But if we were to bind these to Active Directory, it would probably fill a few more gaps in our whole flow, and we're looking at that.
Your question?
Mine was kind of coming back to that asset management.
Yeah.
Again, as far as, I guess maybe the first question is, are you guys required to do that?
Yes.
And if you are what are your requirements for integrating it into the Windows side of your asset management? Do you combine it all and put it into a central store?
Oh, it's a great question. So his question is more or less about asset management and how we're doing it. Are we required to do it? And do we play along with Windows and how Windows is doing it, basically?
Yeah, and like, or
yeah.
Do you both, on both sides, do you just throw it all into a central store, or do you have to integrate directly with, Windows WMI stuff, and then it gets stored? What's your process?
That's a great question. So I mean, we use ServiceNow, which is our ticketing system. Do you really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. All right. So we have to, we really want to pull in our serial tag, our SUNY tags, and all this information. LANDesk is supposed to do that on the Windows side. It's also supposed to do it on the Mac side. You heard what I said earlier about LANDesk. So we use ARD, and we punch that into an asset tag field. We use, in ARD, you can choose different columns of information. Same with Profile Manager. So we actually assign that in the Profile Manager. ServiceNow has a lot of APIs. It's scriptable. We can pull that right in. Same thing with LANDesk.
Our naming scheme is the department it belongs to, for like a Mac, the department it belongs to, and then the asset tag. So in ARD, when you pull up any computer, you already have its asset tag and what department it belongs to.
Do you push that right into ServiceNow?
Yes. Our ServiceNow actually pulls it.
Pulls it?
Yeah, it pulls it. And it works pretty, like I said, the screwy part about LANDesk is Was it every 30 days it doesn't delete itself out of machines?
So our LAN-desk was originally set up where if a computer doesn't talk back to LAN-desk, our admin set it up after 15 days, it just is removed from LAN-desk. So we have,
so think about that.
have this continuous problem of computers being removed from LAN-desk.
But we're awesome. I love my job. I mean, I'm just saying that now.
We don't have that problem with ARD in our Macs, but on the Windows side, our labs, if a lab it doesn't communicate for 14 days, you can't push software to that lab anymore without going there, unfreezing them, doing an inventory with LAN-desk, an inventory scan using LAN-desk, and then refreezing them because now LAN-desk sees it again. So.
Does that answer your question? Any other? We have 14 minutes. I was trying to end early for you guys, but if there's any other more questions. Going once? Yeah.
So maybe I'll talk to you afterwards about how you do that scripting in ServiceNow to pull that in, because we use ServiceNow.
I am not. No, I can. I'll give you my email. ServiceNow, you are like an SQL. I mean, you know your queries, and on our my boss is awesome at it. She can run circles, and I'll gladly share the information.
Great.
Yeah. Last week we wanted to have it ServiceNow where we could just send an email to it and have it like with a hashtag or something where I can send an email to it and say hashtag Chris Palian, and it would go into my queue, and that's like a customized script. So from ServiceNow, so that would also be like one of those things that have to be customized.
But yeah, should be happy to talk to you for sure.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yep.
Way back there.
So I think I heard you right. The question was, it's a little off topic. Nothing's ever off topic. And how are we handling user data? For backups. So, you know, with the Mac side, because our users are administrators, sometimes they use time machines, that's taken care of. Generally what we do is we back it up. So we have unlimited space with Google Drive. So because we're in education, we can shoot stuff across to that. You know, that's really not, we don't have a defined approach for that. We do back it up and it really depends on the profile. So if we have something that has 100 gigs, you know, we're not going to do that.
And the faculty member that's involved. My boss in the Office of Learning is an assistant provost, and she said, well, Chris, you know, make sure this is always backed up. So we have it backed up to Google Docs, and we have a time machine USB drive behind her computer that's constantly backing it up. Yeah. So there's several like one-off people who don't use exclusively Google Docs or another solution, but maybe a combination of solutions.
If you are using Google Docs, I'll do a plug for Kumo. If anyone's heard of it, it's by Indiana University. It actually allows you to turn your Google Drive into a mountable drive, whether it be for Citrix or for whatever, and you can point backups to it. It's very slick. Kumo, Indiana University. Take a look at it. It's probably where we're going to head. Kumo. If you type in Indiana University and just do your best at Kumo, I think it's Kumo.
I think so.
They're great. It's very inexpensive. They'll give it to you to play with for 6 months. We're testing it out merely for our Zen app deployment and our app user profiles and directions. But it maps that Google Drive right into Windows or our Mac just like a regular drive. And because we have unlimited, we're putting it to the test. Let's see, Google.
This is it, right?
You'd have to slide it over, but yeah.
Oh, all right. Hold on 1 second.
Other way. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So very neat stuff. I was just at Synergy in Florida, and this is their version of Monkey here. This was huge. People are going crazy. So, anything else? We'll be here just hanging out if you guys want to talk to us. Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.